Hello, welcome to the GARF Network. I am Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight we've got a very full house, a lot of very special guests on board for our Night 90 30th anniversary celebration. So let's introduce everyone we have on board. Matt, you want to get rolling with this?
Sure. First, we will start with Dyrk Ashton. He was the truck zombie that Tony Todd plows over coming into the film. Dyrk, welcome.
Good to be here.
Thanks. And next to Dyrk is Mr. Bill Mosely, who needs no introduction. He played Johnny in the film. Hey, Bill.
Hey.
There he is. And topping off the top row is Mr. John Russo. John, welcome tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, on the bottom row we have Mr. Russ Streiner, producer.
Howdy, howdy.
Russ.
We have William Butler. Do you prefer William or Bill?
Yeah, Billy's fine. Yeah.
Play Tom. We have Patricia Tallman.
Hey, everybody.
All right.
I'm sorry to screw up the order. I've added Tom Savini to the stream on the bottom left here, director.
Yeah.
And on effects, we have Mr. Everett Burrell on the bottom right. How is everybody doing tonight?
Very good.
All right. Good deal.
And we're 30 years out from Night 90's debut, and I just kind of wanted to roll this out to everybody. I mean, everybody was at that point was at different stages of their career. I'm just curious, and we'll start with Tom and kind of go around. I guess we'll go counterclockwise and go to Russ. But I mean, at that point in time, with trying to recreate a legendary or a historic film, what were your ambitions at that particular point in time in your career? Oh no!
Well, there goes that.
We're going to start with Russ then.
He did not like that question.
Yeah, you asked the wrong question.
Tom went away, did he?
That's it tonight.
Well, I think.
Well, first of all, he looks like he's in the cave that Marlon Brando was in Apocalypse Now. Maybe he's not getting a strong signal.
I think for speaking on behalf of the original Night of the Living Dead crew, it was a pretty exciting time. There was obviously some controversy about should this film be made at all. We felt that it should, and we can get into some of the details later on. And I think it was a special time for George, who wanted to give his longtime friend Tom Savini a chance to enter the directing world by directing the remake. Obviously, it would have not been a good idea for George to attempt to direct it for a whole lot of obvious reasons. And Tom was chosen, and then this wonderful team was put together. And my feeling is that even though it was always compared to the original film, I personally like this version. I think that it paid justice to all of the characters, and I was always highly entertained by it. I was a little bit sorry that it lived in the shadow of the original Night of the Living Dead.
Tom, how's your signal right now? Uh-oh.
Oh, did he lock up again?
Yeah, we better go with William.
Hey. What was your question?
Oh, just that particular, you were coming on to the Night remake. At that point in your career, what was your ambitions and, with the project?
Well, Johnny Vulich and I, who, John worked alongside Everett, they did the zombies. Since we were 16 years old, we were massive Tom Savini fans. So when I found out I had the opportunity to audition, I was actually terrified because I was a huge fan of Tom's, and by then I was becoming, the Mickey Rooney of horror, and I was the boy next door in a lot of horror films. So I didn't know if I was going to get another whack at it at that point, but I was so happy that I did. I was such a fan of everyone involved, and George and Russ and everyone, Tom, John, everyone. Thrilled to even be on set with Everett and Johnny, since Johnny and I had grown up, and watching Everett and Johnny, design the zombies before we even left was just, it was just an amazing time. I'm really happy.
Yeah. And how about you, Patricia? You had worked with George before.
Yeah. In 1980, I did a film called Night Riders, which was my first time in front of a camera. I was fresh out of school, and I was in school with Tom Savini, was one of our teachers. So that just set me up for 1990 to work with everybody. I knew a bunch of the crew by then. It was such a remarkable experience, one that is never repeated for me, not like that, and just George was so kind and supporting, and Tom was the perfect complement as a director to support us, and he loved actors, and he really just made us all feel like rock stars, and we just had what an incredible set that to put together the crew, Everett and John, and then and everybody behind the scenes, as well as all the actors in front. It was just such a great vibe. We just, that's really hard to do. You do the best you can, but when you actually have that chemistry and everyone gets along and has and then the film is a success, it's just like, wow, that's winning the lottery right there.
How about you, Everett?
It was an amazing honor when Tom asked John and I to do some test makeups back in the 89, 90 in my garage in Granada Hills, and those makeups sort of set the tone of what we were trying to do with the film. And the zombies were your neighbors next door. They weren't completely rotted. They had just begun the sort of zombie plague. So it was a really big challenge. And Tom had some sort of mission statements about these dead eyes that we had to sort of invent this sort of dead eye zombie look, which I really loved that challenge. I loved making Tom happy. Both John and I looked at Tom as a father figure, and we wanted his respect dearly, because we respected him a lot. So it was a big challenge to live up to our dad, so to speak. And it was a lot of fun. Patty speaks to the camaraderie. We had a blast. We brought a lot of our friends along the way. I know John recommended Billy. Tom and John loved Bill Mosely. Patty, part of the family. And I brought Tommy Tolles from the bar order.
Oh, wow.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. That's awesome.
Love or hate Tommy, I thought he was great in the role. So,
oh my God, I love it.
I miss all of our dear departed friends who are not here to talk, but we had a blast. But it was a challenge to make Tom happy and to live up to the original and to try to create something new.
How about you, John?
I'm going to try and add to Tom again real quick.
Well, I met Tony Todd when he first came on to the location. And the funny thing is, he had just been in this really awful movie that I wrote the original script for. It's called Voodoo Dawn. And there was an evil witch doctor in it. I mean, it's a modern tale, but and I was asked to write this script, and Bedford Entertainment bought it and they loved it, and I turned it into a novel. And then they kept changing their minds about what kind of film they wanted, and so they kept hiring one writer after another, and they ended up hiring 5 writers, and they made a total gloopy mess out of the movie. And I mean, it's one of the most awful movies ever made. And the thing that I first wrote actually should be made now. Another funny thing about it, this witch doctor was called Chango, which later, as everybody knows, Quentin Tarantino made a movie called Django. So I don't know.
Matt, Tom is saying that it's telling him that the room is too full.
Oh, we can
Oh,
Really?
Here, let me remove this, Tom.
I was going to say one thing I remember about Tom, since he's not here to say anything. And I just got done. Well, I mean, it was on the first day too. And, you know, anytime the camera rolls on any kind of film, there's electricity in the air. It's so tough to get things financed and green lighted and so on. And when it actually happens, it's somewhat of a miracle, and everybody's up, you know, really up for it. And Tom said, says, well, for the next 7 weeks, we're going to work our asses off, and we're not going to get any sleep, and we're probably all going to get sick, and it's going to be like being in basic training in the Army. But at the end of it, we're going to have a movie. And that's true. That's about how it is. So we didn't know the hell we were going to go through. Which most of the hell was, it turned out Russ and I had the main job of keeping the money coming in, because 21st Century Films was on the verge of bankruptcy the whole way. And so a whole lot of our time was spent on the phones trying to make sure that they wouldn't just shut the production down.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, enough of that. I don't want to take Bill Mosley's time here.
Bill.
Yo, huh?
Mosely.
Yeah.
And Bill,
Yes, happy to be here. And I met Tom Savini on the set of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because Tom was, of course, the special effects makeup artist for me as Chop Top and Leatherface and, you know, poor peeled LG and, you know, everybody. And that's how I met John Vulich as well. And we called the makeup department, I called it the House of Pain. I was there a lot. And after the movie, you know, I became great friends with Tom, and I still have pictures of his daughter lying on a bunch of rubber bodies that he had made in the makeup shop. And, you know, she was, you know, like 4 or 5. And anyway, Tom wanted me to be a part of this. And I remember him sending me a script back in the days when you actually had to put a script in the mail. And I guess pre-internet. And I remember him saying to me, read the script and pick any parts you want. And I went, great. So I got the script and I read it. And I wanted to play Harry, you know, the late, great Tommy Tolles, the guy in the basement. And because that had more pages, and I figured that was going to pay me more as an actor. Of course,
makes sense.
You know,
makes sense.
Yeah, right. Art for art's sake, right? And so I said, I'd like to play Harry, and he said, pick any part, just make sure it's Johnny. So I was like, okay. So I went out, and because Russ had done such an amazing job as Johnny in the original, what I wanted to do was to make sure that I had the Boris Karloff accent down. So I went out and I got a movie called Die Monster Die, which was one of Boris Karloff's last movies. And I just watched a videotape of Die Monster Die over and over again until I could finally say, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And that's awesome. You know, once I had that down, then I was cool. I was good to go and ready for Washington, Pennsylvania, and the graveyard.
So Dyrk, how did you come to be about?
I had been working on films in low budget stuff, small films, but professionally on commercials and industrial films in Columbus, Ohio. And the production company that I worked with used to bring Nick Mastandrea over to AD a lot of these things we worked on, and for several years we just worked together all the time and drank a lot. And you know Nick, and you know Nick. So we became really good buddies. And then he was like telling us, guys, I'm going to get a chance to be in the directors union. I'm going to do the first thing, doing this remake of Night. And so we didn't see him for a while. I graduated from college, got my master's in film, and went up and was in my dad's office. And there's the phone rings, and my dad's secretary says, Dyrk, Tom Savini, a guy named Tom Savini is on the telephone. And I'm like, bullshit. There's no way Tom Savini is calling me at my dad's office. So I thought Nick's up to something. And sure enough, is this Dyrk? This is Dyrk. This is Tom Savini. Nicky's been showing me some of those short movies you've been on. I want you to be in my movie. And I'm like, is this really Tom Savini? Yeah, it's Tom Savini. When can you come over? It was literally like that. 2 days later, I was at the production, drove from Toledo, where I was at that point, to Pennsylvania, to Pittsburgh, went in and saw Nick and met Tom, and Tom started pointing at all these storyboards up on the wall and said, pick a zombie, any zombie. I said, which ones are the, you guys know what Tom was like then as much as he is now, I'm sure. But, so he's like, this one's really cool because a bullet goes through its head and we're going to see a shot through its head. And this one's cool because this happens. And this one, and he goes, and this one comes walking up the road and gets hit by a truck, gets a crowbar stuck through his head. And I said, does that one get to do a stunt? He said, sure does. And I said, I want that one. An hour later, I was at the effects shop and met John and Everett for a head cast for that zombie. And that's when I first met those guys. And then later, when I came over for the shoot, we went out one night with everybody, and we buddies came with me. We crashed on Nick's floor that whole week, that whole few days that I was there. So that's how I got in.
Well, Bill, you mentioned Washington, PA, and I was going to direct this towards Russ. And what made, and then everybody else maybe chime in with your experiences as working in Washington. John, what made you choose Washington? How did you guys choose that as a location?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Actually, Tom did, because Tom was bent on. Well, here he is.
Right.
And he's moving. All right. Woohoo!
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I had to call my assistant and talk me through Chrome to get through to.
Yeah.
I get it.
They just asked.
What did I miss?
Everything.
Well, they just asked how that farmhouse was chosen in Washington, PA, and I just got done saying, well, actually, you chose it, and I was going to talk about that, but now that you're here, you're the one that chose it.
Well, you can read all about it in my new book, Night of the Living Dead 90, which is the storyboards with comments and descriptions. It's basically a comic book of the movie I wanted to make.
I have
well,
one
funny.
of those. Funny
You should say that, because I also have a book that's half finished now, but I might have to retitle it, because the working title is Night of the Living Dead 90, a pictorial history.
Oh, okay.
And the reason it really looks great. I wrote it, and it's already written, and half the book has the layouts.
No, mine's different. Mine's different enough. It's the version.
I know. I
I
saw yours.
Yeah.
I saw yours.
I don't mean to crash in on this, but I just want to let you know that the name of my book is Night of the Living Dead 1990, a pictorial history and a remembrance of my experiences.
That's very good to know. But,
all right, it'll just be easier. Anyway. Who is not writing a Night of the Living Dead 90 book?
The thing is, I took about 1,000 still photos during the making of the movie, so I have plenty of stuff to illustrate it with. And you're all in it, and you're all featured prominently in the text and the photos, and I think you're going to like it.
Well, I'd love to.
I can't wait.
I'd love to see those.
Can't
Yeah.
wait to see it. Yeah.
Hey, are we?
I'm sure you will, especially if we ever have conventions again.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is the public here now?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Are they
They've
asking
been,
us?
235 viewers at the moment.
Wow.
Are they asking us questions?
They can't.
Not yet.
Not at the moment.
There are some questions I see.
Mhm.
I see questions.
So, was there anything in particular that led you to that farmhouse, or?
I just love the layout. We sent out a location scout. He brought back tons of photos, and that one. I love the staircase going up, especially the view from above that Patty walks into, that Pat Logan falls into. It was perfect for what was planned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
It was a great house.
Great location.
The house was for sale. When we were shooting, the house was for sale for $125,000, which included the 80 acres around it.
Wow.
Mm.
Damn.
Incredible.
And I
I'd
do
be
remember
okay
that
with the
we
Ku
shot-
Klux Klan coming by every once in a while.
and we-
Yeah, right.
Really?
I think our first
that happened,
was
Patricia?
Earth Day.
I don't know what happened to Russ, but the Ku Klux Klan, Tony was married to a white woman in the that is the Ku Klux Klan area, at least it was. And he actually had to start staying at Russ's house instead of on the location because he was getting a lot of trouble.
I never
Wow.
knew that. Yeah, that's funny.
I didn't know that.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I guess it was. I knew it. Well, Russ and I are such close friends, but
shouldn't
I
we-
knew it.
Shouldn't we have had a Ku Klux Klan zombie?
Oh.
makeup would have
Chris, I know.
Because the zombies are from all walks of life. We had clowns. We had clowns and football players in Day of the Dead. Why not a Ku Klux Klan guy?
The makeup would have been
Satisfy everybody, you know.
the makeup would have been easy. All you would have needed was the hood.
Bloody sheets. Just bloody holy sheets. That's it.
Bloody sheet, yeah.
Yeah.
And then if it came off, it would be a black guy.
No.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Like in Blazing Saddles?
Exactly.
Well, there is a documentary out now called Black Klansman. I don't know what that's about.
Wow.
Well, Bill and Patricia, you guys open up the film. Why don't you each talk about that scene a little bit and how was? I imagine was most of that recorded like off screen? That conversation.
Yeah, they were in the back seat of a car, right, Patty?
Right.
We were just sitting there, and they did it. The sound guys were there, and they just did it in the
Wait a
back
minute.
seat.
They were in the back seat of the car and they did it?
Whoa, hey, oh.
This is deteriorating fast. That took no time off.
Why do you think we got into show business?
I was
I
just
think-
going to
I
say
think-
how much I love working with Bill Mosely, but now it'll be taken wrong. But
Actually, I think the day we actually shot in the graveyard was Earth Day, as I recall.
oh, good for you.
Remember that? It was Earth Day.
I remember Tommy. You know, it's normally spring in Pittsburgh. I mean, you're going to get a lot of rain. Of course, we have a whole week of sunshine, and you're like, but then you loved how it sort of juxtaposed with the movie, and it's different from the original. It's this beautiful sunshiny day, and then all these evil things start happening.
Well, yeah, I still wish we would have opened in black and white. And about the time you get to the farmhouse, the color would start coming in, mainly as a homage to the first film.
That's
Right.
cool.
Here we are with a brand new one when
Mhm.
it turns to color, you know.
It's kind of
Kind of
Wizard
like
of
the Wizard
Oz.
of Oz.
Pardon? What Bill?
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. When she goes into the house. Yeah, but
Right.
except we weren't behind her. We weren't behind her going in. She came right at us, you know.
You can say, Johnny, we're not in Kansas anymore. Or Pittsburgh.
I sense a new film birthing
All right.
right now.
Only one film critic understood the name on the house. Do you guys know the name on the house?
Mary Celeste.
Celeste.
M. Celeste. One critic of all the stuff they sent me, stacks of it, picked up on that.
Wasn't that a
Was that the boat? Is
I'm
that
sorry?
the
What's the name? I don't remember what the name was.
M. Celeste.
Marie Celeste?
Yeah.
The ship that was missing? Yeah.
It was the takeoff on the wreck of the Mary Celeste. Everett, what did you say?
Wasn't that a John Vulich idea?
No! It was totally mine. I wrote it. But he picked
Now
up
everyone
on it.
can see what it was like.
Right here in this book,
Right
the
on.
version you've never seen.
Where's my book? Billy, do you have your book?
I do not.
Patty, your book is great.
Thank you.
That's
I
nice.
love it. I read it in the bathroom, however. Is that
Whoa.
It's fine. As long as you read it.
I'm
I don't
reading
care.
it?
Continuing on, Bill and Patty, what did you guys have? Was there improving with the scene, and how was it like with the stunts? Because Patty, I know you're a stunt woman. So what was that like? Because I know Tom talked in the audio commentary. He wanted a lot of physical contact, and there was a lot of rubber body parts to be able to hit and bounce off. Walk through that, because that's a really gripping opening scene.
First, you said, what was the first part of that?
With you and Bill, your interactions, was there?
Oh, did
improv?
we improvise? A little bit. I think we just wanted to keep it natural, right, Bill? We weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, we read it. We were doing it as written, but I think we kind of.
Well, there was, when we got out of the car, I mean, just as we rose from the car, there was, they're coming to get you, Barbara. And then we had a long walk to our mother's gravestone. And that's when I threw out, they're horny, Barbara. They've been dead a long time. And Tom liked it, and even George liked it. So it stayed in the movie, and it was pretty cut and dried until whatever happened to our wonderful, what is the first guy's name again? The white-haired gentleman?
I'm sorry.
Pat.
Yes. And then we come across Pat. Everything seemed to work out. I don't remember anything physical except for getting behind our mother's gravestone, and then just doing that no mother, and pulling myself down like my mother is pulling me into the grave.
Yeah,
And
but later on, weren't you were physically fighting with Greg Funk, weren't you?
Well, yeah, thanks. There was no, we didn't train for that. I just, and my head is still hurting from, getting tacked on the gravestone.
You survived well. And Patty, we had a rubber foot of you that we kept hitting Greg in the face with.
Right.
As if he was
Oh, cool.
But then, Bill, you got stabbed. You got stabbed in the hand with the flower decoration.
I hit him by accident.
Oh,
Yeah, Greg Funk. Yes,
I was trying to stab Greg in the spot we had fixed for that.
Yes.
And Billy's hand got up in it, and I. Sorry.
Well, that's show business. But
it was fun though. It was that was a fun scene.
That was a really fun scene, and I do remember that actually I did that. Oh no, mother! And I wasn't completely satisfied with it, and I remember we were already moving on to another shot, and I asked Tom. I said, "Look, can I just do that one more time?" And Tom, unlike any other director I've ever worked with, said, yeah. And so he gathered back the cameras and we did it. And it really went well that time. I think that's the take they put in the movie.
Well, how come we use such a bad take? Because we can see your elbow going past the top of the gravestone.
Well, I don't think I'm trying to fool anybody, but But thank you for that, Tom. I'm always, as an actor, I'm always in your debt for that. So thank you.
Well, Patty, you did it too. You were doing the scene of the skinny zombie in the window, and you were shooting at him and saying your lines, and we were moving on. You said, "Can I do another one?" And it was the best of all the takes, and that's what's in the film.
Well, that's why we love working with you. I mean, I was saying you really trusted us as actors, and you made us feel like rock stars. And so, you brought the best out in everybody.
Well, all I had to do was cast the best actors.
Oh my God!
It didn't require a lot of directing.
See, that's why we love him. See, just right there, that stuff.
Tom, I remember Tom being, I think Tom's still the most hands-on director I've ever worked with. And I did quite a bit of stuff after that, after I moved out to LA. Mm-hmm. But the question I get asked the most is, how did you do the broken body lying on the ground? We dug a hole, and it was John who was down in the hole, right, Everett?
No, nobody was in the hole.
No, wasn't somebody down in the hole moving their legs?
No.
It was a rod.
It was a rod from the back. Okay.
Well, I remember Everett. I remember hearing you say in some documentary that you didn't think that was going to work, but it worked. But you guys thought it was beautiful.
Great.
Yeah.
But when we shot that, real quick story. When we were shooting that, when Tony came out with the crowbar and did the famous "God damn you, God damn all of you," Tom was lying on the ground right next to me and watching to pull me out of the way so I wouldn't get a real crowbar through the head. So he's lying right next to me on the ground because you can see my head in the foreground. And he when the camera goes up, he pulled me over, and Tony did that take 3 or 4 times and spit all over both of us every time. Remember that, Tom?
Oh yeah.
God damn you! Just spew and spit all over us, and we're getting up.
Hey, Everett, wasn't it you guys' idea to make the zombies not have eyes, to put those lenses?
Well, no,
we wanted them to be dead,
It came from a comment you made early on where you said you wanted to have these dead eyes. And so John and I we did these test makeups where we did those lens caps that went over the eyelids. Mm-hmm. And we sent you videotapes of the test makeups, and I think you really liked it. I think you hired us.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, that was the idea. The eyes are the window to the soul, and if there's no eyes, there's no soul,
Well, hey, Everett, isn't it true, Everett, that you and John were the first? Well, I think, didn't you guys start designing the makeups on computer, and you were one of the first guys to do that?
Yeah, we had an Amiga 500 with 1 megabyte of RAM. And we did some early zombie concepts where we'd scan actors from a book called Heads. It's a very famous book, black and white photography.
That's a great book. That's a great book.
We scanned that book early on, and we did makeup designs in deluxe paint on the Amiga. And I remember showing it to Tom. I remember George Romero just blew his mind that this technology was even possible. And now look at today, after all these years, it's all digital now.
You can make chimpanzees talk.
I had no idea you were using that book. That's one of my favorite books because it's nothing but pictures of bald men.
Yeah.
And it shows how unnecessary hair is. Because their faces became so much more interesting.
And that's where we got the idea that, we noticed when flesh decomposes, the cartilage does not. So that's why we made big ears and bigger noses on the faces to shrink the faces down. So because the ears don't shrink when you decompose, they stay the same size because cartilage doesn't decompose like normal flesh.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Weirdo.
I'm taking notes.
Well, in that vein of thought, I hate it in movies when some actor is supposed to play dead and they pose like they want to look pretty, okay? The muscles don't work anymore. Even the jaw muscles. The jaw is always slack and the eyes are open. it takes a muscle contraction to close the eyes. So when someone dies, the eyes, there's no muscles, so the eyes are open. Anyway, that was, some actors do play death very well and do exactly that.
I'm seeing a lot of questions in the comments about is the potential for an unrated director's cut. Does such a thing even exist?
That's a Jack question. I mean, they're not even paying attention to this film anymore. They just gave it up.
I keep at conventions and so on. There are a lot of people that keep telling me how much they like the film. And there were a lot of problems, including getting hit by the remnants of a tornado when we were trying to finish the movie. But they cut all exit wounds, and the reason is I was in charge of getting the R rating, and if we didn't get an R rating, Columbia would have turned the picture down. And Russ and George and I were signed to a $5 million bond, which we would have been on a knot for, which was sort of secondary to us, because the first thing was make sure we get the R, make sure Columbia does take the picture, because they were going to buy it from 21st Century owed Columbia a whole bunch of money. And I don't know all the inner workings of that, but the MPAA, a lot of people don't realize this. They just tell you, well, you got an X, but they do tell you what has to go or change in order to get the rating you want. And so you have to go by their deadline, by their suggestion, not suggestions. They're damn well, you better do it. And especially, we started shooting this picture in June, and it had to be on 2,000 and some screens in October. So you're talking about 4 months to do this whole thing, and there's no time to argue. You better just get it done, and all these prints have to be pulled and everything. All that stuff has to happen. So,
Jack, what was the budget of that film?
It was $4.5 million.
Okay, I heard rumors that we only used 2.5.
No, that's not true.
Okay, because
there was a lot of above the line money, which substantial monies went. Well, you got paid about as much as Russ and I did, but we made sure we got paid up front because we had too much experience with.
I know
whatever you don't get up front, you just never see, because they'll just cheat you out of it.
You went and sat in their offices, you and Russ, and demanded that you said you weren't leaving until they paid you.
Well, that was Russ's. Let's see, I lost my train of thought here.
Well, I asked you that last time.
We went to LA for the Horror Hall of Fame thing, and right before the picture came out, and so we didn't think the Horror Hall of Fame was going to be much at all, and it turned out to be a major event, first class all the way. But Russ said, why don't we tell 21st Century that if they don't give us our final payment, we're going to trash them in every interview that we do. And so we went there. Mark Fisher was there. Menachem Golan was not. We also had found out along the way that they had a $250,000 slush fund that was always there in the office. So Russ said, let's just threaten them. And I didn't think it would work. I thought, no way are we going to walk out of there with that money. But I said, let's give it a shot. And, I'll be you be the bad cop and I'll be the good cop. So we went there and we did it, and I'll be damned, we walked out with the money.
Wow.
So, but
yeah, we could have used
the budget, Menachem Golan, some of you are old enough to remember when the Variety Cannes Film Festival issue came out, there would be maybe 15 or 20 full-page ads for 21st Century movies. And they had great casts and great artwork and all that stuff. I used to be impressed by that until I found out during the making of our remake that Golan would advertise all these pictures, and whichever ones got bought by enough foreign countries to finance them, those pictures got made and the rest didn't. But out of every picture, Golan took $500,000 for himself. Not for his company. They got another $500,000.
Well, that's
So
you answered my question.
Golan got
You
rich
answered
every
my
time he made a
question.
movie.
That's where the money went. So you answered my
So
question.
a lot of the money went there. The money that we all got paid was reasonable and was, in line with industry standards. But they just, well, that's what happened. It was about $4.5 million.
Do you
if you added
remember
everything up?
Do you remember our accountant? He's the zombie with the hypodermic needle in his arm. I don't recall.
Oh, was that Richard? That's Richard Jeffrey.
Okay, yes. He called me. He called me
Yeah.
and said that Canon had no intention of paying me my last check. It was about 25 grand. Well, George couldn't go on the publicity tour for the film. He was writing the dark half. So they asked me to do it. And of course I got my check FedExed the next morning, agreeing to do that. Yeah.
I have to say,
Mark, my name right.
What, Bill? What, Bill?
How come they didn't spell my name right in the credits?
I had no idea.
Are you serious? Is that true?
Yeah.
You are kidding.
You missed one of the E's.
Oh, well, it wasn't
The first
me.
E.
Somebody missed the E's. Yeah.
I wasn't in charge of credits.
Darn it.
We're gonna blame that on Russ.
It's not right.
Any other questions? Interesting questions from the group?
That was interesting.
But there's no word on any extra materials or any.
I'll tell
It's
you.
all here. It's all here. All the stuff that was cut is in this book.
That's true. Very true.
Well, whenever the tornadoes hit down in Florida, and we were running out of film and running out of money, and they were threatening to, just scrap the production and all that stuff. And I was trying to get the most out of the last couple of days of shooting, which most of my job was trying to get the money to come in. But I was coming up with some ideas that we could do real quick, and the audience might get a kick out of it. So I was the one that came up with the idea of having a zombie with the IV needle hanging out of him. Oh. And I'd go to Everett and John and say, "Hey, can you guys rig up an IV zombie?" And oh yeah, we can do that. These guys are so great, they're so enthusiastic about everything. So then I said to George, you were busy directing, so I said to George, why, in the first movie, Marilyn Eastman ate an insect off the tree. That was Marilyn in a different makeup. I said, why don't we have somebody eat a mouse? He said, go see if you can get it done. So I go to Everett and John, can you guys make a mouse? Yeah, we can make a mouse.
But it was a real mouse.
One of the, I'm sorry?
Spoiler.
But it was a real mouse.
Cheaper. That's cheaper.
Well, at one of the conventions, they had a bunch of Night of the Living Dead people there, and I was next to Richie, my table, and we were talking about those days. And Richard, you have to realize Richard's pretty spacey. Unfortunately, he died of food poisoning recently, but he's so spacey, we get a kick out of. Yeah, I'm sorry if you didn't know. Richie.
Of food poisoning?
Yeah, I think oysters. It was only a couple months ago.
Wow.
Huh.
But anyway, he said yeah, it was really felt funny to have that furry thing in my mouth. I said, you're lucky we didn't cram a gerbil up your ass.
And that didn't kill him?
He ate a live mouse.
Everybody was cracking up over this. So I said, I'm going to go.
Help us,
Wait a minute. I don't know what you can hear and what you can't hear. That's what I said. So I think it was at the Mad Monster Convention in Charlotte. So anyway, you can cut it out if you want. I don't care. But anyway, so I said I'm going to go see if George has a line. If he doesn't have a line in front of him, I'm going to tell him what I just said. because George would always say, Jack, tell me a joke. Tell me something funny.
Coincidentally,
So
having a furry thing in your mouth is how I got my part. So
anyway,
didn't want people to know.
I went out.
not many people know that.
There's a picture of
That's
it.
There's a picture of it. Yeah, like,
Read the book.
Here's my book.
I can't hear everything. So
Well, I remember.
wait a minute.
I remember
Wait a minute,
shooting
let me find-
a blowgun. Do you remember that?
Huh?
I shot most of the headshots on the zombies were me with a blowgun shooting them with candy glass wads.
You know, I forgot about that. I did kind of know that.
And the same blowgun that Tom shot me in the ass with.
Wait a minute. Okay. I said, we're not going to blowgun anybody until you do it to me first.
I know.
Okay? And that guy, he made the thickest glass ball of glass and filled it with blood. So I took the first hit, and I had a welt on my head for days because he made it too thick. So that's when we said, to make him thinner, of course. And that's right. All those head hits were blowguns. And Everett was climbing a ladder in the workshop, and I saw a big wallet in the back of his pocket. And I thought I would blow. Yes. It was on Monkey Shines. And I thought I'm going to shoot him in the wallet with this. It was a needle. It was an arrow. It was a sharp, and it went between his legs into his balls.
Oh.
Anyway, let me finish this thing. Wait, no. So I went out, and George didn't have a line, so I sat with him behind his table, and I told him this, and I could see how frail he was. And he did get a big kick out of it. He laughed like hell. Because, we, with Richard, we go way back, And then that's when George told me that he said they found things in my lungs and I have to have a CAT scan and a biopsy. And so that was in March of 2017. So we knew then that, he was in serious trouble with his health, and he lived about 4 months more after that. I still think about him a lot.
I had a question.
Hi, William.
With you playing Barbara as such a much stronger character in the remake, what was some of your I don't know, did you have any inspiration for the role? Maybe some of Sigourney Weaver or some of the previous women who had kind of played tough roles?
No, I'm badass. I've always been kind of a tomboy, and Tommy knew this. He was in school with me. He saw what I did, so he knew me, and he just said, just do you." Basically.
Well, Patty also did stunts for me on Tales from the Dark Side before I gave her a lead role in one of them. But she was a stunt. When I first met her, she was kicking the shit out of her boyfriend in a movement class. Tasso. She was smattering him all over the place. It was tough to make her the prissy little school teacher because I know how tough she is.
I of course admire Sigourney Weaver. I still admire Sigourney Weaver, or I've got a lot of heroines like that women I look up to. But I got to be Barbara the way I felt Barbara was.
Yeah, and then that's Sigourney Weaver is the reason we changed Barbara's character, because I went to George and I said, "Can't she come back and help these people?" He thought she was dead. I said, "No, we just see Johnny in the original carry her away. We never see her killed." So George wrote the Sigourney Weaver ending that Patty did.
Oh,
okay,
cool.
I was really lucky.
Originally, it was like the original film. Barbara was a brain dead twit,
So, yeah, I got to be the 1990s woman as opposed to the 1960s.
We wanted a woman hero. Yeah.
know
And
that
Russ,
it was.
and Russ couldn't play it, so
I don't know.
I
That's
wanted to
why they
call,
brought in Bill Mosely.
I wanted to call attention to the Russ has entered the room.
Yay.
Hey, Billy.
I do remember that I had come up with a great idea for Johnny's demise. And what I wanted to do was to have Barbara standing inside the farmhouse. I wanted Johnny to come in, now dead, like a zombie, coming toward her, and Barbara looking at me going, Johnny, and just, not able to do anything because it was her brother. And I'm getting closer to her. And then Tony Todd comes in and just nonchalantly lops off my head with a machete. And my head goes rolling, and Barbara goes, Johnny! And you see my eyes look up, kind of like when they were chopping off heads in Louis the 14th or whatever. That there was that one moment of humanity as my head is rolling. And I said that to Tom, and he said, we don't have the budget for that. we're gonna throw your dummy in the back of the truck.
We didn't have the budget to bring you back, which is why your dummy was in the truck.
Hey, Billy, I wanted to ask you. You kind of play the middleman between Tony Todd and Tom Tolles. Talk about your role as Tom in the film, because I really do enjoy that role in the remake. You're on mute.
Oh, there you go. That's better. Say that. I'm sorry. Say that again. I was panicking.
I was muted.
I wanted you to talk about your role as Tom, because you play the go-between between two very strong main characters with Tom Tolles and Tony Todd. Talk about that, because that's always been an interest of mine for the film.
Well, as a person who was on the front lines, there were many moments while we were filming where I was pretty sure they were actually really going to kick each other's asses because they were so in character. So acting like a go-between wasn't an issue at all because I sort of was. And, they were just both strong actors and certainly strong personalities that they couldn't have found better people to play either one of those roles, minus Bill Mosely, of course, playing Cooper. But sorry, man. Yeah, they were great, and I just the chemistry between the two of them. From the moment they met, I always felt like they were kind of butting heads to begin with. So I didn't know, there wasn't a lot of acting in my regard. I just kind of felt I was completely intimidated by Tony, because I worked with him first, and he was such a good actor. And as I've said before, I was such a huge fan of Tom's. And then Volich had gotten me this audition, and I don't know if I said this before, but I was working on Young Guns 2 with Viggo Mortensen, and Volich called me and said, Savini will look at a video of you reading. So again, they snail mailed me a script, and Viggo actually taped and directed my audition. So when I found out that I got it, I was just so happy and just so insanely excited to be working with Tom and being a member.
I cast him simply from that videotape because he was sincere and believable and low key, and it was perfect. Just the videotape, yeah. But I had no idea that Viggo wasn't he your roommate or something?
Yeah, we lived in the same house, and he went to go do Young Guns 2, and he's like, hey, I think I can get you in this movie. Like, come out here, because it was in the middle of nowhere. I think it's in New Mexico. And so I went out there to go look after his son, and the next thing I knew, I was in a part of the film. And then Volich and I were on the phone, and he was so excited about, this film unfolding. And I was just I remember I had a VHS tape of my of the last couple of films that I was in, and I know they sent that to you. So then, based on that, it was okay for me to read. And yeah, Viggo directed my my audition, which is very funny. Yeah, he's doing well, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
In case anyone's curious, he's moved on to other things, bigger things.
Anything we would have seen?
Never
No.
heard of it.
Chainsaw 3.
Yeah, you and Billy and Viggo, you ended up in Chainsaw 3 together.
Yeah.
Right.
That was kind of a thing where the guy dropped out like a couple weeks before we started filming, and Viggo was helping me learn my lines, and I was like, oh my gosh, one of the main actors dropped out. And he's like, who is it? He's like, I'll do it. And by that time, he was getting kind of famous. And so I called Annette Benson, the casting director, and she's like, Viggo Mortensen's not going to be in this movie. And I was like, I live with him, and he said he would. And the next thing I know, he was in it, and a much bigger deal than I was in the film. So I kind of was like, oh fuck, he got credit before me, son of a bitch. I've never forgiven him. No, I'm kidding.
He was so excellent in Appaloosa with Ed Harris. Have you seen that Western? One of the best Westerns ever, yeah.
He's just such a great guy.
Yeah.
Hey, Russ, I want to welcome you back.
The road here in Pittsburgh.
It looks like you have a better connection now, Russ. I wanted to let you
I do. I
chime
was
in.
able to get my problems worked out. I kept getting shoved backstage. Me too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We had asked earlier about the potential for maybe uncut or an unedited version, or if do any materials like that exist? Do you have any information on that?
The footage was in the release of the film in the supplementary material. There was like a minute and a half of stuff in that 20-minute documentary. The exit wounds, the Bill blowing up the zombie's head that he kicked, all that was in the documentary, but never in the film. So I think that's what you're asking. Is there ever a chance that that's going to be put back in? Well, who knows? Some enterprising young moneymaker might think of it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
On that topic, Tom, I'm in the midst of moving from one section of my house to another section of my house, and we have discovered and uncovered all of the behind-the-scenes footage that we shot.
Oh wow!
And there's volumes.
Oh, I know. You gave me copies of all those. There's incredible stuff in there.
And so one of these days we'll have to sit down and talk about what to do with all of that. Chris Starvakis is helping me get it off of the original source material and into a digital format.
Wasn't the source material mini DVs?
No, high 8.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow!
Because I have it on mini DVs. We must have transferred it at some point. So I do have it on. Aren't those digital? Those little.
No.
Okay.
It's all oxide.
Oh, yeah.
But the transfers are going beautifully, and there's a friend in the UK who has offered to do a full restoration on all that footage.
Wow.
So we'll have to see what happens with that.
So
maybe putting it in the film, you mean? Putting it in the...
No. First of all, just to look at it.
Yeah.
And then determining whether, if we can sort out all the rights and all that business, then what potentially can become of it.
Hey, Russ, while you were dealing with the technical issues, Jack was telling a story about Golan withholding some funds or not paying. Can you kind of expand on that a bit? We were waiting for you to come back.
Well, I don't know if he's even still alive. Anytime you deal with a guy by the name of Menachem Golan, you're in for some bit of a ride. And
I looked him up. He died a few years ago.
Good. So he's not listening in. It was in our contract. I think Tom was protected by the Directors Guild, but in George's, John Russo's, and my contract, they could withhold 10% of our fees. They, being 21st Century, could withhold 10% of our fees until we delivered an acceptable answer print, which we did. So you say, okay, well, now here's the answer print. Where's our 10%? And it was one thing after another. Well, it's this, it's that, it's another thing. John and I happened to be in Los Angeles there was a rehearsal of the show where the original Night of the Living Dead was entered inducted into the Horror Hall of Fame. After the rehearsal, we had some free time, and I said to Jack, how about if we drive over to 21st Century and get our money? And he thought, well, that's a fool's errand, but we might as well give it a try. And I told him before we went in, I said, you are going to see a Russ Streiner that you've maybe never seen before. You're going to see a complete asshole. So we drive over, and back in those days, we had keeping track of things, a booklet called a Day Runner. And I marked down the name of two friends who were reporters at Daily Variety and
Hollywood Reporter.
Daily Variety, and I forget what the other one was, trade papers. And we go in, and the 21st Century offices looked like someone was about to make a quick get out of town. Boxes were packed up and stacked in hallways. It was clear that they were on their way out of town. So we went into the office of the guy.
Wait, Russ, didn't they have armed machine gun carrying guards outside?
What's that?
Didn't they have machine gun carrying guards outside?
If they did, I didn't see them.
They also, I did Buried Alive for them in South Africa, and that was the first office that I had ever been to where you had to walk through several metal detectors just to get into the office. I mean, this is
they
way
did
back.
have that, but this was, they were clearly on their way out of town. I mean, they were going out of business, period. And the only leverage that we had were the trade papers and the fact that we knew that they were trying to engineer a deal with Columbia Pictures. 21st Century had their own money into the production of Night 90, and they, if anything happened to the deal, to queer the deal with Columbia, it would have been absolute curtains for them. It was curtains for them anyway, even with the deal. So we went into, Jack, what was the name of the attorney, the guy we were dealing with?
Well, that Mark Fisher was the one we
Mark
dealt
Fisher.
with. Mm-hmm.
And Mark is still around, and he's still doing business, and I guess he's good and healthy. Went into Mark Fisher's office, and I said, we want our, are we allowed to swear in this broadcast?
Yes.
But yeah.
As long as you don't say anything about gerbils.
And Mark said, well, wait a second. That's all being taken care of. Don't worry about it. We can't give it to you today. Menachem is in Manhattan. He's at the Waldorf Astoria. I don't give a fuck where he is. We are not leaving until we have Russo's check, my check, and George's check, period. If you call the security people, we will rat you out to the trade papers, and we will do our best to queer your deal with Columbia, because you guys are doing to us what the original Walter Reed guys did to us. So here we are 30 years later, and you're doing the same thing. And they hemmed and hawed and hemmed and hawed. We sat there, and guess what? We ended up walking out with all of the checks, including George's. And if, I said, if these checks bounce, it's the same deal. We will do everything we can to queer the Columbia deal. And it turns out that the checks didn't bounce. Other than that kind of goofy, strong arm tactic, which was very unlike we guys from Pittsburgh ever engaged in, we would have never gotten that money.
I had a question about, just generally, and I could throw it out to anybody. How close was George involved with the project as a whole? And I understand he had other things going on at the time, but as far as presence on set,
he was there the first few days, but he had a commitment. He had to go write the dark half. He had a deadline
Right,
for that. And then he came back. He came back the last 2 or 3, 4 days and helped us combine shots and get it done on time. But he was. I wish he had been there the whole time, because we have a special on-set relationship from when I was doing effects for him. And it was kind of there at the beginning when he was there the first few days, but he wasn't there. People called him on the phone all the time. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I feel pretty lucky because he was there. I got to talk to him the day, a couple days that I was shooting, and I was only there for a couple days.
So we must have shot you in the beginning or the end. Toward the end.
One or the other. I don't remember when we did the.
I think it was in the beginning.
I do too.
Was it? Pat? Yeah. I think it was real early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real early.
And George was supposed to, we agreed that somebody from the original should show up just as a tip of the hat to the original film. And since the sheriff's part was such a small part, that George should play the sheriff, and he agreed to. As it turned out, the day of filming, he got cold feet and said, "No, I don't want to do it. You do it." And that's how I ended up being the sheriff in the remake.
And I sent somebody all the way to Pittsburgh to my house to get the eye patch out of my desk drawer for you to wear.
The eye patch, a cowboy hat, and the eye patch was my wardrobe signature. Yeah.
But we also had Bill Cardille from the
Bill
original.
Cardille, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So as the camera pans off of Pat Tallman having gone through her dreadful night, waking up in the Jeep, and the camera pans off of her slowly onto me and Bill Cardille, and I'm saying, "Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up," and that was it. But that was supposed to have been George.
And kind of touching on that, Tom, you worked with George obviously for many years before, and it's very famous that he never gave anybody directions in terms of how to be a zombie. What was your approach with the zombies? Not just the look, but the acting. Did you give Dyrk any sort of direction or?
Well, we hired a movement instructor from Carnegie Mellon University. He played the autopsy zombie whose clothes are pulled down. He's got the scar on his chest. So he was giving them. My idea was, if you're a zombie, if your body was on a fence and you suddenly came back to life, you wouldn't know how to use a human body. That's what I said to him. So he gave them. It just got hysterical, the shit they were doing. So we just said, walk slow.
One of the amazing things was when there was the extras call went out for zombies for the Night of the Living Dead remake. The casting office, the temporary casting office, was absolutely flooded with people. People were driving from Kentucky to be zombies.
I'm sure.
Just impossible number of people.
Gay and Wilson came.
Really, Gay and Wilson, yeah.
And Don Brockett and Skip Inspector, the two writers.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in a diner having breakfast, and I saw this skinny, emaciated guy, kind of looked like Pat Reese, And I walked over to him and asked him if he would be a zombie in the movie. It was Mr. Magruder,
I told the story earlier, Tom, of you calling me and my dad's secretary telling me that Tom Savini was on the phone, and I said, "Bullshit! There's no way Tom Savini's on the phone." Because Nicky had showed you those short films that we had done. Yeah. That was fun.
I have a videotape of you. It's called Dogfight or something. Are you aware of it? It's a fight scene with.
Oh, it was just called Fight. It's just me and Mark Burson, who came over for the shoot too. We crashed on Nicky's floor, just kicking the shit out of each other all over the city of Columbus. Yeah.
Is that what they showed me about?
that was probably one of the ones. Yeah, I'm sure that's one of the ones that Nikki showed you. Yeah, because we were making that stuff when we were working with him. Yeah,
It's one of the few VHS tapes I still have.
you still have it. Oh wow, that's awesome.
I have In Search of the Castaways on VHS. Really good. A Disney movie. I love it.
Patricia, can you talk a little bit about working with some of the characters, the redneck characters? We've had quite a few mentions of the Jupiter's Balls line.
Oh, those guys, I love them. I wish I could remember their names right off the top of it, but they're really good actors. Pittsburgh actors were really good, and just great to work with. Yeah.
What about Patty? What about at lunch when you had to eat with the zombies? Yeah.
That I had already had a tummy problem, so I show up on the set, and Tommy's like, "Patty, you're supposed to be one of the living." I was really skinny, and I tell you what, lunch was a chore because all of these zombies, we all just ate together, and they all had that makeup on, and they smelled bad because of the makeup stuff, and it was awful. It was horrendous.
Didn't the skinny skeletal guy in the window that came in that you shot, didn't he follow you around?
He followed me around going, "I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you." I was like, what the fuck is going on right now?
This is a cab driver that I had one day, Because originally that skinny guy in the window was going to be their mother. She was actually on the set. We shot her with the funny hat and the flowers.
Sure.
The reason her face is on the tombstone is so that you would remember that funny hat with the flower. So when a woman appears at the window and they're telling Barbara to shoot it, she can't because she sees her as her mother. And we shot the mother in the window. But the actress, the waitress who was the real woman at the window that Patty thinks is her mother, we shot her from behind when she shoots her, a head wound, and then she falls backwards with her face in the camera. It was perfect, but she didn't get up. She was knocked out because the squib moved away from the metal plate and exploded and gave her a concussion. And she fell backwards perfectly into the camera. It was a storyboarded shot, but I think the producers, one of them, said we can't use her because what if there's some legal action with her getting hurt? So I brought the taxi driver in, and that whole scene is gone, but it's in here. That whole scene is in this book.
Hey.
You got to hold it up higher, Tom. You can't see my picture on it.
Where's your picture?
Hold it higher. There you go. Right there. There I am. There I am.
Hey, Tom, is that available on Amazon?
Yeah, it is.
Where would I find this?
Yeah, I bought it. I bought it on Amazon.
Text me your address. Text me your address.
All right.
How about Patty? Do you have? I gave it to you, Patty, in English.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
I'm texting it right now.
It's amazing. It's so great.
It is. It is. I remember all those up on the wall. All those.
So
sketches.
Tom, it's on. If you want to text it to me, I'll put it in the chat so that everybody can see it. You want to text me that? I can look it up on Amazon. You said it's on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Yeah, we're putting in the chat some of the.
You're doing it.
To get your guys' books. So, and I think you guys have been making a couple of sales during the show. So
I've been
Pat's selling some books over here.
Bill, your book is about what? Your life?
It's about 500 pages. No, it's about me moving to LA when I was 17, somehow ending up in all these movies, working for growing up with Vulich, and living in Rome, working for Empire Pictures, and then transitioning into acting for a long time, and then eventually jumping ship on acting and writing and directing, and just like pretty raw, ugly truth in regards to myself. I don't really bash anyone else in it, but it's turned out okay. I'm pretty sure someone, if they haven't, they're going to send it to you, because I was hoping that if you liked it, you would give me a quote for my
Send it, and I would be so happy to give you a quote. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
You want it right now?
Yeah.
No, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. No, I can't remember if you were on the broadcast. I think it was freezing, but John and I were such huge fans of yours from the time that we were about 15 or 16 years old, and I remember. I was with him when he mailed a bunch of Polaroids to you of some stuff that he had done. Yeah. And you called him, and I went over to his house one day, and he was talking on the phone like white as a ghost. And I was like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "That was Tom Savini." I'm like, "No fucking way." He's like, "Dude, Tom Savini liked my work." It was like, I wrote all about it. It's all in the book.
He looked like he was 14 or 15.
Yeah, we were really young.
I still have those pictures. Didn't I show them to you at the?
I think you did. I think you did. Yeah.
To the wake. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for John to end up working on Friday the 13th, what is it? Part 4, with you, and then he kept telling me like, just come here, like because the video market was booming. And there was work everywhere in LA. And he's like, dude, even if you're a PA, you'll be able to get a job. And he was right. After a brief stint of living in my car when I moved there, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, I ended up, coordinating at John Buechler's and then studying with Stella Adler, the Stella Adler on Hollywood Boulevard. And then somehow fucking flim-flamming my way into the acting business. It happened. And, but we were such huge fans of yours, and you could have tipped me over when I was accepted by you. But even when I met you, I was scared to death because I
have this face. I know.
No. It's in my book, but it's like I'm like, so how is he? I'm talking on the phone. He's like, he's really cool. Chicks totally dig him. But like you'll be standing there working, and then all of a sudden, like a Bowie knife will just stick in the wall. Like, I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, he's doing stunts all the time. He's doing stunts all the time, and like jumping around I'm like, oh my god, he sounds crazy. He's like, yeah, but crazy in a really good way.
Or shooting blow darts in Everett.
Yeah. And anyway, it's because of John that I'm in a lot of those.
One of my favorite highlights of when I was living in LA was in about 95. We went to a Fango conference, the big conventions, the big Fangoria conventions. I don't know if they still have them, but it was huge. And walked in with a buddy of mine I'd gone to college with who was a huge Night of the Living Dead fan, and a woman I had met on a music video that I've been working on sort of a date. We walk in and we go out into the main hall, and it's loud, and these things are huge. You guys have been to these things. They're huge. And suddenly you hear Dyrk, and everybody just stops and starts looking around, and way down at the end at one of the premier booths, big long booths, is I can barely see him, is Tom going like this, yelling my name all the way across the room. And we go down. He goes, "Hey, good to see you."
Well, you're a famous zombie.
Yeah.
You're one of the famous zombies.
But that totally I will never forget that. Made that day and made that date go very well, by the way.
Oh, good.
But the other thing too is that Tom said, "Oh, the kid wants to meet you," and he had some young guy in a black leather jacket, introduced me to Slade Stallone.
Sage
Stallone.
Yeah, he was a big fan. He always hung around us at conventions.
Yeah, that was fun.
Hey, Bill Mosely, and we got Bill and Billy, and I want to make sure I get the right Bill in here. You obviously have played some of the most quotable horror movie characters ever. I mean, I don't think a day goes by that someone's not throwing a quote of yours up online. What was it? We didn't get into it. We have the original Johnny and the new Johnny in here. What was it like for you taking that role? I mean, expand on that if you can.
Well, again, it's Russ basically broke the mold. So it was, for me, it was just trying to honor the parts. And again, as I mentioned before about, it seemed to me it came down to being able to do the Boris Karloff. And as I mentioned before, I studied Die Monster Die. So I could get that that accent down, and then playing with Patty was so much fun because she was, even though she is, a kick-ass actor in person, she played that mousy sister so well that it was a lot of fun to tease her. And and what came out was, especially that ad-lib line of they're horny, they've been dead a long time. It just kind of came trippingly off the tongue just to kind of tease her more. And I guess it's up to Russ to decide. I remember actually being in a like as a Fangoria convention or some kind of maybe chiller theater or something, and being in the same room with Russ was a little intimidating because he kept saying, no, that's the real Johnny over there, and pointing at me, and I was like, oh, dude. But it was a lot of fun to play that character, and certainly Russ, is Johnny, and I'm just kind of warming the seat.
Well, you did.
Well, when I sent-
Bill,
when
I have a question for you. This was just not too many months before the whole COVID thing hit. Someone asked me at a show about some big argument that you and I were in, and some big dispute. And I said, that's absolute nonsense. There's no dispute that I'm aware of. Do you know how such a thing got started?
I didn't know there was a dispute either. And what was it? Was it over the real Johnny or something?
I don't even know that it had anything to do with the character. And I said, that's just absolute nonsense. Bill Mosely and I get along just fine, and there's no dissension that I'm aware of.
No.
Dueling Johnnies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those fans, those tricky fans, man, they like to foment some stuff. But
we're gonna have to have Johnny off.
Yeah,
I agree.
Johnny off.
More Johnnies than you.
Long overdue. 30 years overdue.
Cage fight.
Well,
I
I
was
think
going to say something about there's things that a lot of people aren't aware of as far as what happened to the picture when it came out. We were number 5 in Variety in the nation, which isn't bad, but it was a bad week for movies. No, there wasn't even the number 1 movie underperformed by a long shot. And then, so Russ and I were investigating, well, how did this happen? Columbia had done their audience surveys and so on, and they were on cloud 9 because the picture had 90-some% name recognition. Well, that's not unusual. Everybody knows Night of the Living Dead. Of course, it's going to have high name recognition. But what it boiled down to is they were. Part of the reason was that 21st Century owed them a whole bunch of money, which I don't know if they ever collected. And the other thing, they decided that this picture had such name recognition that they didn't really need to advertise it, spend a lot of money advertising it. So in a lot of the markets, they pulled the advertising. And it turned out that in the markets where they went all the way with the advertising like they would with any other picture, we were averaging $5,000 to $7,000 a screen. In the theaters where they pulled the advertising, we were only averaging about $1,200 a screen. So that's the whole story as to why, that's basic story why, the picture didn't go through the roof.
Jack,
It's also one of the hazards of dealing with a big studio, that when the marketing department decides, 90-some% name recognition, let's scale back some of the paid advertising. What they were counting on, Entertainment Tonight and the various programs that showed up on set to film features, the remake of Night of the Living Dead. They became so accustomed to counting on that and scaling back the advertising that they had to pay for, they ended up actually shooting themselves in the foot pretty badly.
Do you know how much money the movie made?
I don't.
I haven't kept up with that, and it's hard. You know, like the original Night of the Living Dead, people ask us how much did that make, and you hear the figure $50 million. Well, we certainly never saw it. We were cheated out of almost every penny. So, which was one of the motivations for doing the remake, to try to get the shareholders some money, and ourselves if it had been successful. My own opinion is, and can't prove it, I think if the first movie never existed, this remake had come out on its own with no previous history, I think it would have been a big success. And I think it's that good, and people like it a hell of a lot. So, and it seems to be one of these things, judging by reactions I get at conventions and so on, it seems to age well, I mean, not all pictures do. I had occasion, Russ and I both, with some of our film students a few years ago. I was really impressed with Blood Simple, for example, when I first saw it. Yep. I don't think it holds up very well now. I think it's kind of lame.
I still love it.
Well, I think that's a good question to ask to both John and Russ, and that is, which version do you guys prefer? Because a lot of fans that I've talked to, they have their preference. It's either, the original or the 90 version.
I guess I'll always, well, I don't, people always ask me with my books and films, and, what's your favorite? And I said, that's a kid's question, what's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite lollipop? I don't get into that very much. They're just different. They're just different.
I think they both stand on their own, and I agree with John that if it were not for the original, I think the remake, the second Night of the Living Dead, would have been held in very, very high esteem. I really do.
Yeah. The fans love it. Yeah, the fans.
Yeah, I get more and more favorable comments about it at conventions. Another thing is like Return of the Living Dead. Some people, that's their favorite one, Mm-hmm. Most people probably like the original Night of the Living Dead the best, but a lot of people just absolutely love Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, there's a really robust and active Night of the Living Dead 1990 only fan web page or Facebook page that Tom is in sometime.
I've seen it. I didn't know how robust it might be.
No, it's great.
I have
a guy named Jonas Barbosa. Jonas, I just said your name.
Yeah.
Runs it. Yeah, no, he's a really, really good guy. He's down in Brazil, and there are people from all over the world in there, John. You should check it out.
Yeah, he's the keeper of the flame on that.
Yeah. Do you guys remember there was a front page spread in Wall Street Journal when this was being made?
I just want to see you. This is Misty.
I'm gonna kill you.
And if it wasn't for Misty, I wouldn't be on this show because I would have been totally flummoxed with trying to set it up.
Love you, Misty.
Misty
Misty.
lived. Wait, Misty was 9 years old and lived right down the road from us when we were filming. She lived right down there, and she used to come as a little girl and watch us shooting.
We did. We sat on the road right up above the farmhouse and watched.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Misty.
And she loves the movie. She loves the remake.
You guys probably have a copy, Tom and Russ, John. Remember Wall Street Journal did a making of front page?
Oh yeah, I used it. I have a lot of that stuff still.
Yeah, I have a copy of that because the image is one of those weird. It's a picture of me lying on the ground. on the
Wow.
cover of the Wall
I
Street
didn't
Journal.
remember that, but
Wow.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
the unit publicist that 21st Century sent in. Her name was Joyce Wagner. She was very, very good, and I mean, she got us when she first came on location. She asked me, where do you think I'm going to go first to start the publicity campaign?" And I don't remember what I said, maybe one of the networks or who knows. She said Wall Street Journal. She said, if I get Wall Street Journal, everybody will tumble. And she was exactly right. We got that major spread in the Wall Street Journal, and we were everywhere, which is part of the reason why Columbia dropped the advertising. It's like unintended consequences. And this business is full of unintended consequences. That's for sure. Except for the intended consequence of ripping you off every which way.
What about the limited release of the Blu-ray? I never got one of those, but wasn't there like only 3,000 of them released, or there was something?
Yeah, only 3,000.
What was up with that?
I have no idea.
But a new one has come out from Australia, which is many more. The original release was 3,000, yeah, but now there's a big release, and it's Australian, and it looks fantastic. Blu-ray. And listen, I got to tell you,
my address.
What?
Give him my address.
Oh,
like, hey, I'll take one.
One of George Romero's favorite books was Jack Russo's book called Dealey Plaza, involving the Kennedy assassination.
Oh.
And I'm a huge Kennedy I haven't read it, Jack, yet, but I'm ready to go. It's on top of Patty's book, which I read in the bathroom.
I was going to ask you because a long time ago you contacted me and told me you were going to read it.
Right.
But anyway, it is not about the assassination.
Oh no, but it takes place.
It's about people, college friends who go to do a reenactment of the assassination because they're conspiracy buffs. And on the way home, one of the women is raped.
Don't tell me anymore. Don't say anymore.
This will not ruin it for you. But the impact of these murders follows these characters through their whole lives for 40 years. And it's really about Tom Brokaw's quote about America was changed forever when those shots rang out in Dallas. That's what this book is about. This epidemic of violence and rage and everything else that's going on in this country, how it got started and how it spread and mustered. That's the theme of the book.
Wow.
Hey, John, I recreated the whole Kennedy assassination for the Umbrella Academy season 2 in Dealey Plaza. I directed all that stuff.
You did?
It was absolutely amazing to be there at Dealey Plaza and recreating that whole assassination was phenomenal. I was blown away.
You just reminded me of something that involves you and John. I mean, you didn't know it, but I was in LA and I was being courted by Joe Wolf, who, ended up putting up some money for another piece of shit movie.
Children of the Living Dead.
Children of the Living Dead. It was I was supposed to direct, and it's supposed to be my script, and it turned out to be his daughter's script, and just a piece of shit. I hate it. But he drops me off at this motel. I walk in the door and I turn the TV on, and there's you and John. And you were doing a thing where you created a Bigfoot, and you were explaining how you had the bones underneath the muscles moving and lifelike way and all that stuff. And I thought, that's John, that's Everett. I watched the whole thing.
So Everett,
by the way, I spent Rob Lucas's house just shortly before John died. We spent an evening with him and watched movies at Rob's house and so on and so on. And he was doing so well with, working for Disney and all that stuff. And next thing you know, he's gone.
I know.
Yeah. Sad.
What are we going to say, Tom?
When you were in Dealey Plaza, did you did you incorporate the grassy hill, the grassy knoll in what
Grassy
you were
knoll?
doing?
Everything. I'm gonna send you a Dropbox link, Tom, to all
I'd
the
love to
behind
see it.
the scenes stuff that I did. It's actually a phenomenal amount of work that we did back there to recreate
Okay.
Dealey Plaza in the 1960s. Was it's very somber to be there. It's a very it's not a fun place to hang out at. You just get the vibe that it just not really you don't want to celebrate it. You want to respect it. But we really we had a great time shooting there, but it was incredibly complicated. Dealey Plaza is the most busy intersection of all of Dallas, so shooting there was a massive challenge.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd love to. Please don't forget. I'd love to see that.
I'll send you the link.
Okay.
I have a listener question that came in. It kind of ties into a question that we were answering recently. But did anybody happen to watch the remake Night 90 with George? And what was his opinion on the film?
I can only tell you, and I put this in my book because I was, telling all these kinds of things. He actually thought that Columbia was going to reject the movie until we were at my office, and that's where the editing was taking place on Market Square. And Dubinsky and his team, they were amazing. That we used to joke they would have the picture edited before it was done filming. That's how fast they were and so good. So we saw the edit, which was pretty much a final edit cut to Jerry Goldsmith music and as a scratch track, And at the end of that, George said, well, Jack was right. We did enough. We did enough. They're going to accept the movie and it's good. That's the only remark I know of from George. Because I didn't see him much after that for a while. He was on all the Tom and Declan and George, and they were all on Dark Half.
Yeah, what's up with Declan anyway? Has anyone heard from him for a while?
Don't say that
Well,
name.
now,
Don't say that name in my presence.
sorry.
Don't say that name.
Declan is one of the big shots at Netflix.
You're kidding.
Is he?
You're kidding. If he walked in this room, I would strangle the life out of him. My 2 cents. He was
And I
constantly
don't
lying.
know how he's
George.
hanging on at Netflix. I have no idea, but he's a big shot. I couldn't believe it when I heard it.
Tom, I have an overall deal with Netflix. I've never heard his name, just so you know.
Okay, good. Let's keep that name out of any printed material or conversations. I did refer to him in this though. Without saying his name, I called him the sleazy scumbag producer, and I said, I don't mean Russ Streiner or Chris Romero or Jack Russo. I'm just not going to name him.
I actually got along okay with him through the shooting of the movie. I haven't seen him since then.
He was a lying scumbag.
That may be true, but I just have no experience of that.
Yeah. Well, I did. Boy, oh boy.
One of the funny things, a small world ish thing is that the original Night of the Living Dead of the studios who screened the picture, Columbia of all people had the answer print for 2 weeks, and George was getting more and more excited about the fact that Columbia might pick it up. Well, in the long run, they turned it down. The reason that they told us, which I don't believe for a second, is that it was because it was in black and white. I think that they just didn't know what to do with it back in those days in 1968. But it's weird that they ended up being the owner of the remake.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest story ever is when we saw the print at Columbia with Vulich, myself, Tom, George. When the credits rolled up and the Columbia logo came on, Tom stood up and said, "It's the lady with the torch."
That's what George called me at my house.
It's the lady with the torch.
I was at my mother's house and we were having dinner and George was on the phone. That's the first thing he said. He said, "Russo, it's going to be the lady with the torch." And I had to think for a minute, what the hell does he mean? But he was really excited.
That's funny.
Well, it's a major studio. Major studio.
No, but you were so like we were like kind of in shock that we even were in the room, and then when you said "Lady of the Torch," the first thing I thought was Three Stooges.
That's true. Those are Columbia's, yeah.
Well, I kind of want to jump in and get everyone's final thoughts. I mean, it's been 30 years. I mean, it's Night of the Living Dead. It's one of the absolutely most iconic films, you know, in the horror genre, from George's to yours, Tom. And here we are 30 years and we're still talking about it. What's everyone's, you know, final thoughts on where we stand after 30 years?
Well,
We're still here.
As far as I'm concerned, it's part of the remake is, or Night of the Living Dead Part 2 is, to me, a part of the original legacy. And it's very, as far as I'm concerned, it fits into the legacy as much as anything I've been involved with. And I'm so pleased to have met all of the people who participated and helped make it to be successful, and something that you could actually be proud to put your name on.
Well, I was going to do the effects on the original Night of the Living Dead. George said, quote, "I can use you on this gig, okay? But I had enlisted in the Army on the hold program. They called me and I was in Vietnam when George shot the movie. So for me, it's coming full circle. And that's what kept me going on the remake, was having come full circle from almost doing the effects on it to directing the damn thing, you know? So it's very important to me. It's very important to have that attached to my name."
Awesome.
And I think one of the big things people don't realize, the challenge Tom had. I mean, look at it this way. Tom was trying to repaint the Mona Lisa with Leonardo standing behind his back.
Yeah.
It was really, what a task. And hats off to you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Everett.
Yeah,
Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. I'm so glad to hear that from you.
that's
thank
true.
you.
I mean, to see Tom really be put to the test on set was not always easy, because there was so much pressure from an expectation from such an amazing classic. And it is true that all these storyboards and all this stuff were just fucking mind-blowing and cool. And it was such a pleasure to work with Tom and the cast and Jack and Russ and certainly to meet George himself. It is, like I said the last time we got together, being involved in a project of this magnitude is the gift that keeps on giving, because, you know,
yes.
we seem to have a lot of anniversaries, and I'm very grateful for it. But, it's always nice to know that, you know, that this film was so well received by so many people. And I'm so proud, so hugely proud to be a part of it.
And all the people we miss here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
I got to say that it was just really a lot of fun to continue my relationship with Tom Savini, which again started with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And really a great pleasure to work with Tom. I keep beating the drum, like, why isn't he directing like a lot more stuff? Because it's a lot of fun to work with him. Night of the Living Dead meant so much to me as a, you know, human, and certainly as a horror fan. You know, that and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I really consider the two seminal movies that got me excited about the genre. And, you know, to be a part of it, you know, albeit in the color version, was a great honor for me. And, you know, and again, something that I'll always appreciate.
Yeah.
I think, well, for one thing, not all that many movies have reunions at all, do they?
Mm-hmm.
You're in kind of
The
you're
good
in
ones. Some of the good
rare-
ones too. Yeah.
yeah, a rarefied company just to have these different conventions, want to throw reunions in this particular program and so on. So I think that proves something.
Well, also we're more living than dead, so that helps.
It does help if you stay alive.
Yeah. I can't believe it's been 30 years. I mean, it was just really serendipitous that I got to be anywhere near it. And it's still one of the highlights of my life. And I've done some pretty interesting and crazy and fun stuff, but I'll never forget it. While we've got Everett, and he can't run away yet. Everett, can you tell us if there's, I'm really picky about my TV. I only watch a couple, but can you tell us when we might expect the next season of UA?
Yeah, I leave for Toronto January 5th, and we start shooting February 8th.
Okay.
So it'll take,
awesome.
My guess, February, March, April of 2022, it'll be out. It takes us a long time.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah. I absolutely love that show.
Thank you.
And it just gives me even a bigger thrill to know that you're involved.
No, Netflix has been really great to me. I'm honored. But the show that we're developing now, which I can't say, to me, it's the gift from the movie gods. So I'm really happy. And I want to talk, Mr. Savini, I need to talk to you about it.
Okay. I'm sending you my email right now.
All right. I'm sending you the Dallas link right now.
And Patty,
and Bill, I got yours.
Okay.
I got your address. Yeah.
Bring me along to Toronto, man. We're all networking now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Patty, after 30 years, Night of the Living Dead, what's it mean to you? What are you feeling?
It's so big. It started my career really because I had small stuff going on, but and to work with Tommy to make friends with these wonderful guys that 30 years later I feel like are brothers, and to be a part of Romero history. I mean, it's too big. I don't even know where to start with all that. But really, I have been so blessed in the films and the projects that I've gotten to do, and most of it has to have been kicked off by Night of the Living Dead.
I did a movie with John Landis, and one night he said, "Hey, I saw your movie, your Night of the Living Dead. Great girl."
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Too bad he never cast me in anything.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
Well, and I just want to say, in terms of the GARF Network shows and the shows Eric and I've done, this has been the absolute biggest response to a show we have had yet.
Mm-hmm.
Over 1,100 comments and engagement. You guys had something going on in 1990 that is still effective and loved today. So I want you guys to all know that and take that with you through the holidays, that you guys have touched a lot of fans with this film in many ways. So please be proud of yourselves and know that.
I just want to add, Matt, that because I think you're exactly right. And all of these lovely people are out there talking to fans. I think that's huge because there's a lot of cast, a lot of actors that aren't as interactive with their fans. Right. John and Russ have led the charge. Tom has been everywhere talking to everyone. Billy and Bill, Ev, I don't know. I haven't seen you too much out there, but you've been working actually. So good for you. But so I think there's something about the fact that we love our fans. We
very much.
And they love you guys.
Amen to the fans.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thanks everybody for coming.
The remodeling crew that is working on remodeling my house have made me promise that once everything is done and done to my satisfaction, that we're going to have a screening of both Night of the Living Deads here, so they can all get a firsthand commentary about it.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, Russ, that's very cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
All right. On behalf of the George A. Romero Foundation, I want to thank all of you for being with us and remind everyone, I've got the link at the bottom of the screen. If you haven't already, to please check out our Patreon page and consider becoming a member. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
We'll
Thanks,
see you again, and
everyone.
maybe we'll see you again in 5 years.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.